Okay, let's just dive right in. Imagine setting up like a permanent home on Mars. First thoughts, oxygen, food.
Yeah, the basics for survival.
Right, but what about the actual buildings? The structures themselves, walls or roof?
That's the massive hurdle.
Exactly. Right now, getting even a few kilograms of anything into orbit costs a fortune. Forget sending tons of steel or concrete all the way to another planet.
It's just not feasible long term.
But what if? What if we didn't have to ship it?
Now you're getting to the interesting part.
Yeah. Today we're taking a deep dive into something pretty revolutionary, an idea about literally growing our future in space.
Using biology, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Specifically, something as, well, humble as algae, how it could be the key to building self-sustaining habitats, far from Earth.
And this comes from some solid research.
It does. We're looking at work from the Harvard John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences SEAS. It was led by Robin Wordsworth, published in Science Advances.
Wordsworth's group, yeah. They do fascinating work.
So our mission today is to explore how these tiny green organisms and these smart bioplastics could actually transform those interstellar dreams into something real. And there are some genuinely surprising facts in here.
Definitely. So let's start with that core problem, building on Mars or anywhere else off-world.
Right. The huge challenge.
Yeah.
Getting the materials there, transporting traditional heavy stuff like steel, concrete. It's complex, it's incredibly expensive, and it just doesn't scale up for, say, a real settlement.
And that's where this Harvard SEAS team comes in with a completely different way of thinking.
A shift in mindset, you said.
Exactly. Instead of how do we ship it, they're asking, can we grow it? They're proposing a biological alternative, moving away from those, heavy, costly, often hard to recycle materials we use here.
Tapping into nature's efficiency, basically.
Precisely.
And the core idea, the thing that makes this so, potentially revolutionary, is this concept of a closed-loop system. Wordsworth described it like this. If you have a habitat that is composed of bioplastic and it grows algae within it, that algae could produce more bioplastic.
Right.
So you start to have a closed-loop system that can sustain itself and even grow through time.
And that closed-loop part is everything. The habitat essentially grows itself, recycles its own materials.
It completely changes the game. It shifts space construction from just consuming resources shipped from Earth to something potentially self-sustaining.
Yeah, a living, growing structure almost. But getting a truly closed-loop system, that's going to be incredibly difficult from an engineering standpoint, right? Beyond the lab.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge question.
I mean, the biggest challenge is making sure every single input and output is perfectly managed and recycled. Think about waste products, nutrient levels, energy flow. Any leak, any inefficiency, it breaks the closed part.
Right.
You're essentially trying to engineer a biological system with the precision of a machine. It's incredibly complex.
But the payoff is huge if you can crack it.
Immense. It's like picturing, a futuristic bioreactor instead of just a stack of bricks. The whole concept is pretty striking.
So you listening might be thinking, okay, sounds great, but maybe a bit sci-fi. But the team actually tested this.
They did. They moved beyond just theory.
So how did they do it?
Yeah.
How did they demonstrate this was even possible? Let's get into their actual experiment.
Okay, so they set up a simulation of Mars-like conditions in the lab.
Right here on Earth.
Right. And they used a specific type of algae, Dunaliella tertiolecta. It's a common green algae.
Why that one?
Well, it's known for being really hardy, a survivor. It can handle harsh environments, which is, exactly what you need.
Makes sense. And the habitat itself.
That was a 3D printed chamber made from polylactic acid, PLA, which is a common bioplastic.
Okay, so plastic, but biodegradable plastic.
Exactly. But here's the really clever bit. The bioplastic wasn't just a container, it had a dual role. Yeah, it was designed to block the really intense, harmful UV radiation, a major problem on Mars's surface. But crucially, it still let enough visible light through for the algae inside to photosynthesize.
Wow, okay. So the walls themselves are part of the life support. They protect and enable growth.
Precisely. It's not just passive structure, it's an active part of the system, incredibly elegant design.
That dual function is brilliant. And the conditions inside the Mars simulation, you said they were extreme.
Oh, yeah. We're talking atmospheric pressure of just 600 pascals.
U2s.
More than 100 times lower than Earth's sea level pressure. Super thin atmosphere.
Okay.
And it was mostly carbon dioxide like Mars, not our nitrogen-oxygen mix.
Got it. But wait, water. At that low pressure, wouldn't water just, boil away instantly?
Good question. Normally, yes. But the chamber design was clever. It created a sort of pressure gradient, meaning it managed to keep the pressure inside the chamber just high enough to keep the liquid water stable for the algae, even though the pressure outside the chamber was Mars low. It essentially tricked the water into staying liquid where it needed to be.
Okay, that pressure gradient thing is genius. Just shows the kind of inventive thinking needed for this stuff. So, taking this lab result, what's the big takeaway for building in space?
Well, it strongly suggests that these bioplastics, especially when you integrate them directly with biological systems like algae, could be really vital. Key components for viable life support systems in places that are, well, otherwise totally uninhabitable.
Right. It's not just about shielding people from the environment.
Exactly. It's about the habitat itself actively participating in supporting life. It's a fundamental shift.
And this algae research, it connects to other work Wordsworth's team has done, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It builds on their earlier breakthroughs with silica aerogels.
Ah, the aerogel sheets. Remind us what those did.
They basically demonstrated a kind of localized terraforming on Mars. These super light aerogel sheets could trap solar heat, mimicking Earth's greenhouse effect, creating these little warm spots on the cold Martian surface. Warm enough, potentially, for biological stuff to grow underneath.
Okay, I see where this is going. So you combine the two, you use the aerogels for warmth,
Addressing the temperature problem.
and then you use these bioplastic algae-filled habitats inside that warmer zone, which solves the pressure problem for water and provides resources.
Exactly. You start to see a more complete solution taking shape, solving both temperature and pressure, allowing plants or algae to grow. It makes the whole idea of setting up shop on Mars seem, well, a bit more achievable.
Yeah, it paints a much clearer picture. Martian homes made of, well, essentially advanced pond scum. Who knew?
Huh. It certainly opens up that pathway, yeah. Growing our presence, quite literally.
So what's next for the research team? Where do they go from here?
Well, they have some pretty ambitious plans. One big step is demonstrating that these habitats can work in actual vacuum conditions.
Like on the moon?
Yep.
Or in deep space?
Precisely. That would broaden the applications significantly beyond just Mars. And even more exciting, they want to design and build a fully working, closed-loop system for habitat production.
Taking it from the lab concept to a truly self-sustaining, maybe even self-replicating system.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Imagine habitats that don't just grow, but can effectively reproduce themselves using local resources and sunlight.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. Okay, let's bring this back down to Earth for a second.
Yeah.
The space stuff is amazing, obviously, but what does this mean for, you listening right now? Wordsworth mentioned benefits here too, right?
He did, and it's a really important point. He said, the concept of biomaterial habitats is fundamentally interesting and can support humans living in space. That's clear. But he also stressed the potential for spin-off benefits for sustainability technology here on Earth as well.
Okay, how so?
Well, just imagine applying these same core ideas here, growing our own building materials biologically, using engineered biological systems, maybe algae-based, to recycle waste, produce resources, purify water or air, all within a closed loop.
Creating truly sustainable, maybe even regenerative construction and infrastructure right here.
Exactly. It could totally revolutionize how we deal with resource scarcity, waste management, environmental impact on our own planet. The lessons learned for space could directly help Earth.
So we've really unpacked a lot today. This idea that humble algae and these clever bioplastics aren't just lab curiosities. They can genuinely reshape space construction.
Turning that dream of living off-world into, well, a biological reality.
And maybe just as importantly, the insights gained could lead to some incredible new sustainability tech right here at home.
Which really brings up a fascinating question, doesn't it? As we face these huge challenges, whether it's surviving on Mars or living sustainably on Earth, how much more can we learn by looking at nature's own solutions?
Yeah.
How many other answers are already out there in the biological world just waiting for us to understand them, perhaps adapt them and, grow them into existence? Makes you think.